Welcome to the Journey to Wellness podcast, sponsored by the Essential Wellness Society and Healing Wheel Holistic. I'm Melissa Stonehill-Kyam, and I will be your host. With over 40 years' experience in the health and fitness industry, I am ready to dive in to some of the most conflicting topics we have regards to health today. Let's go. Welcome back to a really special episode today on the Journey to Wellness podcast. I have with me two really amazing women, Alicia Perez and Tamara Herl. And I'm really happy to be here with you. And I want to tell you how grateful I am that you gave me your time today. We're going to jump into a lot of different things, and we're going to dive pretty deeply because these two fascinating women sitting next to me are into such good stuff, and I really resonate with the things that you're doing. And I know there's more to it than what I've read and what I know. But what I know is that, Tamara, you are a licensed therapist or counselor.
Correct.
And that you use the modalities of art and nature in order to work with people. Well, that really speaks to my heart so much. And thanks. Alicia has a great story as well, and she does one-on-one as well as group breath work. And what I've experienced from my own breath work, I think a lot of ladies who have had children have been practicing breath work. It's quite ancient.
Right. Yes, very
much.
But
one of the things that I love about breath work is it's available all the time. And you don't need anything but your body.
Correct. My favorite.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing that I also love about art and nature, it's available all the time.
Exactly.
And all you need is you. Mm-hmm. So where this fits into wellness, because this is the Wellness Coach episode, and what I was very intrigued by is people feel a lot of times that when you mention the word wellness, that you're talking about a supplement, you're talking about a fitness routine, things that are a little bit more traditional in the wellness arena. What is now coming into play in wellness and wellness coaching is really the mind-body connection, where we've started to take the emotion and connect it to the body.
Right.
And this is where I want to jump in today, because I want people to look at it, wellness, like a diamond with many facets. And that's not to say that good supplementation, good diet, exercise, and everything isn't a phenomenal approach, because it is. But it's truly just one leg of everything that provides the stability and the access to really be optimal. So I'd really love to start with both of you introducing yourselves. We could start with Tamara, and then just tell everybody kind of like, in a nutshell, a little bit about you, what brought you to what you do, and then we'll move on, and then we'll just dive into all this good stuff today.
Okay, great. Right, so I'm Tamara Herl, and I am CEO of Wild Divine Coaching and Retreats in Cascade. And I think what brought me to this work was that I was always a shy person and kind of introverted. And so I spent a lot of time in nature. And I just noticed that I felt really supported and connected, just this unconditional love. And so I loved to spend time in nature, and was excited many years later when I discovered that it was actually a profession that I could get into, because I've always wanted to do work that I loved and that would support other people at the same time. So I actually started my career as an art teacher, knowing I wanted to be an art therapist, had to get my master's degree to do that. And I loved doing that work for a long time. But then I started noticing, well, number one, traditional mental health really focuses a lot on labels and pathology. And I wanted to focus more on people's strengths and their spirituality. So then I started expanding the art to art immersion and nature immersion, and really helping people step into their life purpose.
It's so beautiful. And one thing that my first degree is in art as well. And what I always found about the creative process is that that and gardening, I was my most authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
Where my mind, there's nothing else I'm thinking about except what it is that I'm doing at the moment. And that's so freeing. And one of the things that I want to kind of put out there is that this happens sometimes when people are 7 years old and they draw something in class, and the young child has put so much into it and the kid knows exactly what that is on the paper. And then if you're not trained as an art teacher, art teachers will say, tell me about your picture. But then the adult says, well, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that question fractures that child's confidence of their expression. So I really want to encourage people to let that go. And so just really quickly, like, how do you allow people that space to be free? Like, what's that little tweak?
I think the thing that works the best that I've found is to invite people to leave their inner critic outside. So just leave your critic outside the door when you do this work. And I often tell people that it's not like you're trying to create a Picasso to hang in a museum. It's about expressing yourself. So using lines and colors and shapes to do that. And that really seems to help a lot.
That's really nice, leaving the inner critic outside. I mean, we could apply that to just about everything, right?
I think it's such a meditative experience too. When you can allow the mind to focus on one thing, which is like your art or being in nature. Mm-hmm. And I think as a society, we've lost such a connection to the earth. And so I think that's really beautiful that you're creating community and connection, back with the mama,
Right.
Right.
And then the nature aspect, do you pull that in to the whole experience?
Definitely. And a lot of times we start with nature because our world is so noisy and so fast. And so I like to take people out in nature and have them really, really slow down and pay attention to who and what's in motion. That's a directive that I use. And then the pleasure of presence. These are both from forest therapy, just helping people really open up their senses and even see with senses that we don't use, or sense with senses that we don't use all the time.
Yeah, there's so many that we don't use.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Many. So now I'd like you to introduce a little bit about what you do, and I'm curious, what was the pivotal point that you decided that this is a modality you're going to bring forth?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Well, I am Alicia, the founder of the Groupe. And the is a WEE. So it's wellness, embrace, and courage. And it's about creating a sense of community. And I am a breathwork and meditation facilitator. Gosh, and what led me there? I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast on that. But essentially, back in 2012, I was diagnosed with a kidney disease. And immediately I knew I had seen, it was something that was in my family. My grandmother and my mother have it, and I've seen how they've dealt with it. And I just innately knew that my body was intelligent, and my body knew there was another way of healing. And at that point in time, I just was not in connection with my body. I was in my 20s and kind of crazy. And I just immediately felt this pull. I started going to a kirtan, a chanting class. I showed up. I had no idea what I was doing there, no idea who these people were and what they were doing. And I just kind of joined in. And in my Gemini spirit, I gravitate towards everything. I like to try all modalities. And so I just really got the ball rolling. And I had a breathwork class. It was a holotropic breathwork. And so it's quite intense. And it really, I had a very explosive experience. It brought forth a lot of emotional, stagnant energy that was in my body. And that kind of liberated me in order to see the world in a new way, like
So
through a new
for
lens.
people that are listening that don't know what holotropic breathing is, can you give a definition of that?
So a holotropic breath, breathwork is ancient. It's been around for thousands of years, practice all across globally. And holotropic is a more forced hyperventilation breath. So it's very in and out through the mouth, kind of, right? And what that does is it brings us forth into an alternate state of consciousness. And it allows the conscious mind to go to sleep, and we can dip into the subconscious thought pattern. And so you're breathing for about an hour straight. It's not for everybody. There's a lot of contraindications health-wise of people who should not be doing it.
Important to know.
Important to know. And I don't practice that modality anymore, that style of breath. But yeah, I just had a really explosive experience. And I think what I talk to people a lot about when it comes to health, or they say, like, how could you heal that or heal this thing in your life? And I don't think it's one. I don't think there's one piece. There may be one thing that someone resonates to more, but I think it's about opening yourself up to the yes and just trying a little bit of everything to see. And I think it creates this puzzle piece, and missing pieces kind of click in there to create your own wellness, if you will.
I love that model. And when I named my company Healing Wheel Holistic and Healing Wheel Retreats, it was with that in mind, is that it really takes a village, and that whole medicine wheel of different people along the wheel that do what they do, and networking together, those spokes of the wheel and the connections, and networking together to really help the individual.
Yes.
Because you may find something that really works for you, but then you adapt. And then maybe it no longer works for you, or maybe you've grown and you need other things. So one of the treats I have for you all today is we're going to really begin this podcast with a little sample of some breath work, and we're going to do it with you. And Alicia's going to lead us. About 5 minutes, you said?
Yeah, it's probably about closer to 8.
Okay.
About 8 minutes.
So 8 minutes of us doing breath work together and following along. You can follow along, and this is really great because you can replay this, you can do it again, you can get an experience, and then you'll get to know Alicia and Tamara more during this podcast and reach out to them and that kind of stuff. This is just the beginning, though, so hang tight. I'm ready for you to take over. I'm going to get super comfortable.
Perfect. I love that.
And I'm going to take a drink because we live at altitude and mouths get real dry
That's
up
right.
here.
You're not wrong. So perfect. For everyone that's tuning in, we're going to be practicing a breath pattern today called Villoma Pranayama. And basically what this is an interruption breath. And so this technique teaches us how to disconnect ourselves from our thought patterns, and how can we interrupt those thought patterns and to move forward in a new way. And so just allow everyone to get comfortable. And we'll just we can bring our shoulders up to our ears and just allow them to just drop and let the body start to settle. And I just want to invite you to take your right hand and place it on your heart and your left hand on your belly. And for the first few breaths, I'd love for you to start just breathing in and out of the nose and just taking notice of your breath. And noticing where the breath is coming from. Are you breathing from your chest or your shoulders? Is it your belly expanding? Maybe noticing your heart. How is your heart beating? And just taking a moment to come forward with curiosity, not trying to change anything. And then on the next inhale, I'm going to do one breath first, just to demonstrate. And on the next inhale, we're going to take a breath in and we're going to interrupt the breath on the way up. So we're not going to complete the breath. It's going to be an inhale, pause, and we're going to inhale a little bit more, Pause, inhale, pause, and let it go. And again, we're going to inhale just a wee bit. Stop and pause. Inhale. Stop and pause. Inhale. And let it go. And we'll take another couple breaths of on our own, just breathing naturally. And this is a really great way that we teach ourselves that we are in control and we can stop the thought patterns. So when we have negative thought patterns come in, this is a great breath to rely on to interrupt that, to just immediately kind of put a halt. And so with the next inhale, we're going to take a deep, full breath all the way up, no interruption. And we're going to interrupt on the way down. So we're going to let a little bit out, pause, a little bit more, pause, and let it go. And another deep, full breath in, all the way up, a little bit out. Let it go a little more, and let it all the way out. Now I'm going to walk everyone through a meditation. And so just allowing yourself to relax your body. If your eyes are closed, you can actually open your eyes for this part. And I want you to just take a few moments and kind of scan your body, if you will. You can let your hands relax down at your side and just noticing the sensations in the body. Noticing if you can feel the energy moving. And wherever possible, if you can soften and release. Making yourself more comfortable if you need to. And then keeping your eyes open, look around the room that you're in. Just want you to take notice of what you see, noticing any textures, colors, anything you smell and hear. And as you do that, bring your focus back to the center of the room. And just see if you can bring your attention closer, close enough to you as if you were reading a book in your hands. And at this moment, you can let your eyes slowly fall and allow them to close. We're going to let the attention go inward into our bodies. And we'll gently focus on the sensations of the breath, moving in and out of the body. And just letting your attention go wherever the breath comes most naturally to you. For some people, this may be feeling the cooling air in your nose as you inhale. Noticing how it feels as it passes in and out. Maybe you feel the breath in your chest. And perhaps you feel it most naturally in your belly, feeling the diaphragm underneath the lungs, pulling the air into the lungs and expanding your belly as you breathe in. And as you release the air from your lungs as you breathe out, your belly is moving inward, contracting. And just see if you can let your awareness ride the wave of the breath. Wherever you feel it most naturally, in and out. Maybe it's even in your whole body. And as you're sensing your breath in and out, you may also sense that your mind is as vast as the ocean. Where deep in the ocean beneath the surface, it's calm and it's clear. And from that deep place in the ocean, you can look upward toward the surface. No matter what is going on in your life, no matter what those conditions are, deep in the ocean, it's calm and it's clear. And just sensing your breath, allowing you to access the depth and the stillness of your mind. Just like the ocean, from this deep, peaceful place, You can look upward at the waves, much like brain waves. And those are our thoughts and our emotions and our patterns of our mind. Can you notice all those feelings and thoughts that are just there on the surface? They come and go pretty quickly, moving in and out of our awareness all day, just like the waves. Bringing yourself back to your breath, back to this peaceful place, feeling the profound depth of your mind. When a thought comes in, a feeling, a memory, an emotion, noticing the warm, calming sensation, and redirecting your attention to the breath. And seeing if you can observe the activities of the mind as just that, activities. They are not the totality of who you are. Let yourself enjoy the deep tranquility that comes from just sensing the breath, knowing that just focusing on your mind or your breathing brings you to this deep place of calm and clarity. And when you are ready, I want you to take your hands in front of you. And before you open your eyes, take your hands and start rubbing them together vigorously, creating heat and energy. And before you place them on your eyes, allow your hands to separate just slightly. See if you can take notice of the energy between your hands, maybe a vibration. And then placing them over your eyes, you could slowly let your eyes open in your hands, letting the light start to flood in naturally. And then bringing your hands to heart center. And may this meditation bring the same quality of kind awareness to the rest of the day, feeling relaxed in your body and in your mind. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
Wow.
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
You know what I realize about myself is that I go under so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm the easiest person to hypnotize because I really want to. Like I want to go to that other space.
Same.
And this is such a beautiful tool. I was thinking about I grew up in Southern California and I was thinking about all the road rage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people get so uptight in their
Yeah.
cars. It's like, God forbid you get to the red light before them, you know? But people get really uptight and they bring this on. So what I want to present to both of you, I want to get a little science-y now, okay? Because we're using alternative modalities, which I kind of think the word alternative already, it's like, no, this is not alternative. The other stuff is alternative. This stuff is ancient.
Yes.
This is ancient, authentic, primal. But you both understand the science of what you're doing, and you understand the brain chemistry. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, Tamara, like what you feel chemically can take place when people are in your space under your care.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. And so I know that there's been a lot of research done on forest therapy and the changes that happen. They can measure the changes. They will take like a saliva sample and can really measure that person when they're deeply connected with nature. And I think it happens with art too, is that your body goes out of the fight or flight mode. And so then you can think more clearly. Your immune system can function in a more healthy way. So there's so many benefits of just being in that space. And it's really interesting, both in creating art and in spending time in nature, you get into kind of a liminal space and you can lose complete track of time. And it's so healthy to just let go of all the pressures of time.
I love that too, because time is man-made. Like there really isn't, we created it. And when you can let go of that and just be in the now, however long that it takes, is a gift. It's such a gift. And you mentioned the saliva samples and reduction of cortisol. while you're in this space. And some people may not know what cortisol is. I know that you mentioned the fight or flight hormone, and then balancing that out, bringing you more into that, would you say, a more parasympathetic state in your nervous system?
Right. So that those two branches of the autonomic nervous system can be in balance and work in coherence instead of fighting with each other.
Do you find that people are hesitant in nature?
Sometimes they are. Sometimes they might have had a bad experience in nature, as hard to believe as that might be. You know, maybe they got chased by a bear or stung by a bee or something. And so I just make them aware of the hazards, potential hazards, before we begin. And I take a backpack with me that has a first aid kit in it. And so, you know, then they know that I have their back, and I give them permission to leave if they want to, as long as they let me know, so that I don't assume that they're lost somewhere. But I think that sets them at ease, just to know that, you know, someone is there who's dealt with things like that and knows how to take care of something if it were to happen.
Isn't it interesting that the human-wildlife connection is really blocked, right? Like, we're trying to coexist. We're really in their space. And some people are very confident, you know, trail hiking and this and that, and embracing, and like, there's a bird, there's a fox, there's, you know, I've only seen a bear a few times, and that was in Yosemite, but my daughter and my husband have done 14ers, and they've seen him, and my son runs, he's seen him plenty, you know. He's like, so what do you do when you see a bear and you're running? He's like, I just run the other way.
Just turn around.
Just run the other way. But being one and aware with nature is a whole other level.
Right. And you can when you get tuned into nature, you can tell that something's up. You can observe what the birds are doing or not doing, and that will give you a clue as to what might be around you. And I think that really helps. And, you know, I tend to see those. I've seen bear before on our property, and the other day I was just walking on the trail early in the morning and encountered a fox, and I see it as a sacred experience. I felt it was such a blessing to be able to encounter that. I know.
Or foxes. They're like little rascals of the wildlife. You know, when we were camping, we'd put all our shoes outside the tent, and the foxes came and they took our shoes.
That's so
they
funny.
wanted to play with the
jokesters.
shoes.
Funny.
Yeah. So, what does a day look like spent with you in the combination of whether you're doing the forest bathing, nature walk, art, or combination? What does that look like?
That's a great question. We usually start out I like to ask people what their intention is for the day. You know, what do they hope to experience? And usually then we go out and spend time in nature. I like to do a back and forth, going out in nature. And, you know, if we encounter something magical, we stop and drink it in and process it.
Nice.
And then it's fun to be able to document those things at the end of the day or after experiences by creating an image to kind of symbolize that, because sometimes the messages that we receive from nature are in the form of a symbol or a metaphor, and you have to be curious and diligent, and sometimes in order to understand what the divine is trying to share with you.
You know, it makes me think of, you know, all the stories of the Buddha and different wise people and the epiphanies that people have had, reflection in the water. It's always been in nature where this turning point happens, and that is really profound. And I know that I experienced that myself, that there's been times that I've been hiking here, and you're starting at 7,000 feet, and then, you know, the air changes quite a bit at 8,500. And I have felt the altitude, even though I've lived here now 7 years. And so I was hiking not too long ago, and I started feeling the altitude, and instead of being fearful and withdrawn, I was like, bring it on. You know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work my breath. So I took some breathing techniques, and I was realizing that I can pass air. The air is just changing.
Right.
And that maybe it's not time to chit-chat on the trail because I need this oxygen. But it was after I went through it, there was a period of discomfort where my brain wanted to tell my friend, like, let's turn around. I'm done, you know. Mm-hmm. And then I fought that urge. And then afterwards, I felt like I met a new part of myself. Mm. And I felt like
almost like you unlock a new door.
Yeah, I felt like a notch more bravery.
That's awesome.
And so, Alicia, in a session with you, I know you do many different things in combination, but what does a session look like?
Yeah, so my passion project is I am certified clarity breathwork facilitator. And so that is that conscious connected breath, which is no pausing at the top or the bottom. So I'm very passionate about creating a safe area for people to come to, because I think, you know, we all experience trauma. Trauma is such a triggering word for so many people, but the reality is I think we could even just talk just the last 2 years, we've been in a collective global trauma.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that energy resides in our body. And so if we experienced that 10, 20, 50 years ago, mentally, we could say, oh, that was so long ago, I let it go. Many of us were not raised to be able to learn how to let these things go. It's just put it away in that drawer over there and it'll just stay there forever and I'll never look at it again. But the reality is that it comes out in our emotions and how we interact with our loved ones, with our friends, with ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, our limiting beliefs. And so when people come for a session, it's we have a little bit of moment where we discuss kind of your life. You know, we kind of unfold a little bit of your life, of what you've been through, so that we can access what your intention is for the session. And then we'll drop in. So I create a playlist for the session. The music piece is really, I love doing that. So I think different drums and things it moves energy in the body. And so we'll start the breath. And like I was saying before, the clarity breath work is a little bit different. It's a slower breath, which is very much like, it's more feminine. It's a bit more feminine breath. It's safe for everybody. So I did it when I was pregnant. And we'll breathe in that pattern for about 45 minutes. And through that, what we're looking to do is like move the energy in the body. And by creating that relationship before we start the session and creating that safety, that's what people need in order to let go, is they need to feel safe. If they don't feel safe, we reserve and we hold everything in. And so allowing them to let anything flow out, that could be anger and rage or screaming or crying, laughing, feeling blissful. And I say at the very least, you may come out of the session just feeling like you've come home. And that's kind of my favorite. I feel like I come home back to my body. And then we leave about 15 minutes for an integration piece, and to talk about what came up, because every session is so different. What you may experience and myself and will be completely different. And so it's nice to, especially in a group setting, to talk a little bit about what came up for each person. And yeah.
So I love that. And it, you know, when you say these things, it always just builds up, you know, to this next thought that I have. Both of what you both offer, I've spoken to people. We live in a time where people are looking for external things. Ayahuasca, mushrooms, this has become a big thing. And part of the reason I started Healing Wheel Retreats was to allow people to dive into themselves without the use of anything other than themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard from friends that have experienced both ayahuasca retreats and mushrooms, whatever, they said that they had more, I'm going to use the word psychedelic, they had deeper psychedelic experiences with forest bathing, nature walks, art, and breath work.
Mm-hmm.
Both of what you both offering. I've talked to individuals, when I speak to people that are coming on retreat, what have you done in the past to connect to yourself? And I'm really curious because, this is feedback I'm getting from people. They use the word psychedelic.
Mm-hmm.
They use the word of like seeing colors,
Mm-hmm.
doing breath work, going into nature and being able to almost differentiate the different molecules that they're seeing, or looking at a leaf blowing and getting a different experience. Have you had this feedback in the work that you both do? And either one of you can answer and pipe in, and let's talk about that.
Yes. Yes, very much so. Part of it for breath work, why we do that, because we were talking about before, we let the conscious mind go to sleep. And that's really our brain that deciphers everything, that says, no, that's not real. Yes, that is. Or our imagination. And when we can put that to sleep through the breath, what we're doing is we're dumping CO2. So we can put the conscious mind to sleep, and we can dip into our really deep subconscious part of ourselves. And when we do that, we enter a natural state of alternate consciousness. And that is kind of can be akin to what people deem as a psychedelic experience. And what that means is you could see colors, you could have visions of your past, of your childhood, of memories that you didn't even remember were there, that just come flooding in because our brain is not awake for that period of time. And so the integration piece is almost more important to sit with the information after it, because once we bring our brain back in, our brain's very much like, what's that? Did I experience that? Is that real? And that's hard. That's hard for so many of us. And we have to, the integration piece and doing the work after the fact, I think, is really important work.
Right. And I've found that people, I think that we kind of close down our senses, because things are too noisy, and we don't really see, like we might see a wall of green, but when we slow down and really start to look at things, we can see all the variations of green. Count them. How many do you see? I had been walking so we've lived at our property since 2018. I've been walking the same trail for 4 years, and only last May did I discover all the willow blossoms.
Wow.
That just floors me that I never saw them before. But we don't really see. We think we see, but we're up in our head thinking about things, and we're not really paying attention to what's right in front of us. And the colors, sometimes the colors seem brighter, and especially we can really tap into a sense of awe, because something is so beautiful, and we just never realized before how incredibly beautiful it was.
It makes me think of my daughter just took my granddaughter, she's only 11 months, and she took her to the botanical gardens, and she's introducing her to different scents. So like lavender and rose, and what does this smell like? What does this feel like? You could touch lamb's ears and it's nice and soft, and then there's some things that are a little more prickly, and I'm watching the pictures, and I'm watching the experience, right, that a baby has, seeing and smelling things for the first time and touching the textures and everything else. So when I was thinking about what you were saying, how when you go into that, and you said leave your inner critique out, when you're going into nature and you're putting that aside, your awareness becomes innocent again. And you are seeing the veins of the leaf and the droplets, and look at that spider web, and you're noticing things, and it's so amazing. that, and then the breath work is, I'm thinking, I always have in my mind, what can we do for kids? How can we look at these kids that have gone through 2020? Like, I think about this all the time, these children in these masks, right, and the severed breathing, and just the world and the way they had been exposed to it. Because I'm sure people left their news on and children became really aware of these things. I would love to see this type of work implemented in schools. Yoga, art therapy, nature therapy, breath work. Imagine what we could do for our children. We would not be raising generations of bullies. We would be having a more Zen experience. We'd have kids with tools, coping mechanisms, and this is something that I think is beautiful for all people. Families, like touching the hearts of families and changing households, one household at a time. So I'm feeling like almost like we should have a mission of like, let's get our kids involved in all this, and bring it from the top down, or maybe the children teach the parents.
Well, you're not wrong, I think, right? Right. We're used to this feeling of it's like disconnection for a long period of time, and then finding connection, right? But if you can start it from a young age, and yes, if it's in schools, and you can develop practices for people to have in their home to do as a family, then you're creating connection and not disconnection. And you're allowing, especially young kids, I do it a lot with my son, but creating that like awareness of self, and emotions are good, and these feelings are good, and what do you notice? It's like just coming through life with curiosity. And you mentioned something, you were talking about the forest, and it got me thinking so often. So I do these, I'll do like forest bathing meditation and things, and take people on that. And then I go with my son, and I try to guide him, like to get him to slow down. And then in recent times, I switch and I let him guide. And it's like brings me to this sense of wonder, like you were saying, of really connecting with, oh, what does that feel like? And touching the things on the ground, or looking up really high when maybe I'm more used to my vantage point of just right here.
Right. Yeah. I love that, because how many times I have 2 boys, 2 girls, and I know you have a little boy. How many times can a boy, have you seen a boy look at a bug for the longest time, and it's the coolest thing ever, right? What they're seeing, what they're experiencing, not to say it's gender specific. Little girls look at bugs too, but just raising both genders, my boys were a little bit more into looking at the bugs than the girls. But what I'd like to follow up with is for both of you to talk about, what you've got coming up, how people get a hold of you, anything that can connect our listeners to you, whether it's in person, online, that type of thing. So what do you got?
Well, I have a retreat coming up on May 21st. It's called Awakening Divine Purpose, and it's going to be a blast. We did one in April and really had some profound experiences for the people that participated.
Love that. And
thank you. And so if you'd like to check that out, you can go to my website, which is www.thewilddivine.us. And you can also book a discovery call with me, no charge to you, just so we can see whether or not it would be a good fit for you to come.
Right. And your phone number?
My phone number is 719-602-9953.
It's great.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I was thinking, I go, God, I would love to do that.
Well, I wanted to do the last one.
I want to do the hiking and then do art afterwards.
Yeah, I can't wait. I actually would love to do that.
So for myself, I've got a few events coming up. So on the 19th, I've got... What is it, the 19th? Yes, on the 19th, I have an online breathwork session. So for those that are not here in Colorado Springs, or if you're not able to make it to an in-person event, or you just feel more comfortable in your home, the online is great. And then there is another, I'm doing an in-person. There's a couple spots left for that on May 21st. And that one's at 4 p.m. here in Colorado Springs local. And you can pretty much find me. It's the We Groupe, WEE, and Groupe is with an E. And that is on Instagram.
Well, your
Facebook.
Instagram is a kick. Just tell you that.
Yeah, there's no hold bars like this.
No, that's it. When I saw your Instagram, I was just like, I got to meet this girl. She's so funny. Like, it's almost like a little comedy snippet.
Oh gosh.
Oh, I love it.
That's
I love the one where you were just doing your hair. And you're like, I don't really know what to talk about, because real is
it's
the
just
best.
the real. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I think that whole portion like started out like what's pretty. And then I was like, I am a mom of a 5.5-year-old. I don't have time to show up like pretty all the time. And so, but you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, and my website is thewegroup.com. So
It's so great. And I just want to really close with, I've been pursuing this PhD forever, but it takes a long time, just saying, in naturopathic medicine. And what I'm really, really passionate about is that all of these things are wellness coaching. Everything that you just heard is an area of wellness, the mind-body connection. And the more I study, the more I'm understanding it. And here's one little piece of fact that we can't deny. So we're talking about emotions and physical response, breath work, and the relaxation, the cortisol going down. Many times, if you're sad, you cry. You feel this emotion of sadness, and then tears come. Mm-hmm. You have this emotion that just reacted physically. Or you can be agitated and your blood pressure rises. Mm-hmm. Our body is so connected to our emotions that if we don't have tools and take responsibility for dealing with our emotions and keeping ourselves at peace and at ease, that's where dis-ease comes in.
Right.
That word dis-ease is really being out of sync. And the more tools you can gather, the better you are. And these ladies have amazing tools. And I can't wait to sign up for both your workshops and stuff, because I just want to keep piling it on. Doesn't matter what stage you are in life, the more you know, the more you need to know. Yes. And the learning never ends. So I invite listeners, practitioners, all people to connect and maybe think about this as a family affair. Breath workshops, forest bathing and artwork. We are transmitting today from a really special place. This is the Center for Essential Wellness, and I couldn't be more excited that this exists. Sarah Grant just bought this building, opened it up. The spaces are getting filled up with just great people.
I've been to many different practitioners in here, and everyone's been amazing.
It's so nice, and lots of events coming up through Center for Essential Wellness, and that is centerforessentialwellness.com. It's also part of the Essential Wellness Society, which has its other .com and Facebook group. Today is being sponsored by Healing Wheel Holistic and Healing Wheel Retreats. We have an amazing retreat coming up in July. I just was there this morning on a ledge. I checked out the inn that I rented, this whole inn on the side of a mountain, in this gated inn that was built in 1912. And I traveled up the steps in the back. It's all terraced, and up these stairs is a sustainable farm. I love that. I was petting goats this morning. Really. I mean, that is such bliss for me. I love animals. Awesome. And It's a vegetarian farm, so the animals that are there are going to live and thrive.
Nice.
And they do sustainable farming. But our retreat is going to encompass a lot of different tools to diving into the self and reconnecting and discovering things about yourself that you didn't know. And that's July 28th through August 1st in Manitou Springs, Colorado. And my website is www.healingwheelholistic.com. I wanted to thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
This
Thank
is
you.
my
You're very
favorite hour. I'm telling you, I meet the coolest people, the most interesting people, making new friends, and I feel like we're really offering not just Colorado Springs, but being that we're so connected on the internet, just the world at large, great tools to being the best you can be. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time.